Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Dr. Stephen Aizenstat, who's here to share with us his new book, The Imagination Matrix: How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. So is it possible to optimize the power of your imagination to unleash your innate genius? Well, today we're here to discuss just that. So Dr. Stephen Aizenstat is the founder of Pacifica Graduate Institute, Dream Tending, and the Academy for Imagination. For more than 35 years, he has explored the power of dreams through deep psychology. He has collaborated with Joseph Campbell, Marianne Woodman, Robert Johnson, James Hillman, and Native leaders worldwide. He conducts dream work and imagination seminars through the U.S., Europe, and Asia. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Stephen Aizenstat.
Well, Marianne, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
Yes. I've been working with dreams and imagination for, decades now. And actually, the Graduate Institute that I found, Pacifica Graduate Institute, was really rooted in the work of dream and imagination. It's oriented around depth psychological work and study. And what happened, working with really thousands of students in every capacity and leading dream groups around the world, something else started to emerge. Something else opened up from deep inside. And that was that dreams, yes, they are really present and evoke imagination, offer so much guidance. They do. They access the deep imagination. They bring perspective. They bring warning. They bring new opportunity, strategies to meet challenges in life and otherwise. And yet, in addition, something other started to happen. It started about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. Hints about maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And that is, in addition to the dreams that are coming forward and the traditional ways that we work, we'll interpret dreams, we'll analyze dreams, all kinds of things that we're familiar with in working with dream. Notice that a portal would open. Often portals will open, and that there's access to an imagination that really is behind the dream, that actually opens the dream, perhaps even creates the dream from the beginning. After all, we see ourselves in the dream most of the time, not all the time, but many times over. And we imagine, I'm having the dream. And yet, when we look again, we notice that each of us in the dream is one part of the dream. We're one character, one figure in the dream, along with all the others. And if that person, like me, is in the dream, the question becomes, who is dreaming the dream? Who is dreaming me in the dream? Which then gave way to something else, which gave way to a different idea, the psyche itself or imagination itself, really coming forward with a voice of its own, an autonomy of its own, dreaming the dream. And that then inspired the new book, The Imagination Matrix, the matrix of imagination that's alive and active and resources, not only the dream time, but a lot of other qualities in our lives.
Well, I was so impressed with your book, especially, you start right off with talking about the source code for imagination. And I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Well, I believe that we all really come into the world, involved and engaged in imagination. And imagination, deep imagination, has something in mind for each of us, a source code, a sense of our calling, our authentic destiny, not the idea of what we're scripted to do in the world, not part of what the social media is suggesting who we are and how we're going to become. Rather, something else, something much rooted much more deeply in the authenticity of who we're meant to be, a sense of that life that perhaps is unlived and yet is really always pushing from underneath. So when the source code comes, which is another way of saying when imagination presents itself, we have access to the actuality of who we are truly meant to be. When we are in alignment with that, good things happen. When we're separate from that, yeah, we carry on, often do quite well in the world. Sometimes it's more challenging than not. And yet there's something always missing. There's a felt sense that I'm not really coming forward or actualizing my full sense of possibility, my full sense of self. So when we reconnect to that quality, I think we really find our alignment with really our sense of destiny, actually.
Now, you brought up a point that I think a lot of people sometimes we hear about. It's like, are we our thoughts? Are we thinking our thoughts? And so, how does that relate to dreams as well? What part of ourselves are actually participating in a dream?
Well, I liked how you framed that, Marianne. It's ourselves, right? So you use the plural. And that's where I think it lives, right there. That's the keynote. That's the pivot point, that we are many selves. Yeah, we are. We have our identity, we do. And it's important to organize around that part of who we are in the world, right? That Steve that's in the world, that's presenting, that's teaching in the classroom, that is consulting with corporations or other institutions. That part of Steve that is a family person, that is part of a community life. That part, knowable, identifiable, a sense of who I am. And of course, my role shifts in each of those capacities, and yet there's that Steve-ness. From the point of view of the imagination matrix, that Steve is one of many, a variety of different figures. In the book, I call them the soul companions. There are a number of selves. Now, kids get that immediately. Well, all of us do at this point. And that is because, when you're online, you're not just one person any longer. There are multiple selves. In fact, here's the curious thing, because I work sometimes as a therapist. I'm a licensed therapist in a variety of different ways. If you ask a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old, they come in to work with you and you say, hey, what brings you here? A typical question that we all are interested in. It's the beginning place of any session in one way or the other. What brings you here? And there's quiet. They're silent. Most of us would launch right into that. What brings me here? Well, and usually it's something that's uncomfortable or difficult or challenging in life. What brings me here? There'll be a quiet place, a pause. And I've been so curious about that. What's going on is, what me are you talking about? I mean, I have virtual identities. I have varieties of avatars that I'm connected with. I mean, what me are you really referring to? So there's that kind of polytheism, that multiplicity of selves. And rather than that being a bad thing, which I don't think it is, of course, if it gets extreme, then we do have to attend to that. But rather than that being dismissed or marginalized as something off, when we're curious and when we're in imagination, we appreciate that there are many parts of who we are, many selves, not a singular self. And the idea is, how do we connect with those many selves, those many aspects, in a way that's generative, productive, orchestrated? How do we participate in life, knowing that in addition to the identity that I really work so hard to evolve and develop, the identity that was often passed on through family systems and through media, as I mentioned, in addition to that script, who else is present? And if I can connect to that, and when I connect to that, or when I'm with people and I'm supporting them and connecting to the many different parts of who they are, oh my, the resources that become available to be in the world and participate more fully are just extraordinary, truly. I mean, I work as a therapist, I've worked as a professor, I've worked as a teacher and consultant in a family. So I'm not really too fond of the more esoteric fantasies. I'm really interested in what happens in a life to open a certain quality of life, a way of feeling comfortable in ourselves, something that supports a way of being that supports our health emotionally, psychologically, physically. And what I've noticed is that when we connect with a variety of different selves, so to speak, something happens. We have resources that we did not imagine that we could have.
In your book, you talk about following curiosity. Why is that so important?
That is the hallmark, the keynote of the whole piece, following curiosity, which goes back to what happened in terms of how this book, The Imagination Matrix, got written, because of following curiosity. When I'm curious, let's start with the punchline, so to speak. When I'm curious, authentically curious, when I really follow my curiosity, something happens. I awaken to a different way of being present. First, I am present. And second, I am not anxious, nor am I depressed. So isolating depression, and high anxiety gives way because I'm in a different quality of mind and consciousness. I am in curiosity. And that's what happened to me, actually. I was in the Pacific Northwest. I was working with a dear friend and a mentor of mine. And I was in a coffee shop. And, in the Pacific Northwest, there are coffee shops everywhere. And I was working there, and I was just, casually reflecting on what the work that I was doing and, the conversations I was having. And I started to doodle. And I was doodling. I mean, and I'm not an artist by any means. I was kind of sketching on a napkin, just taking a pen and making little designs and this and that. And as I was doing that, one thing led to the next. And rather than go so quickly into analyzing it, or interpreting it, or trying to make it into something, all those would be my tendencies, actually. Instead of going in that direction, I just allowed my hand just to follow the curious moments, right? And just allowed that to emerge. Well, something happened there, and a design did come, but it came from the inside out. It didn't come from my rational mind, my busy mind. It came instead from a different place, a different perspective, curiosity. And as that happened, I then later that day took it to the man that I was consulting with. And he said, one possibility is to continue the sketching. In fact, not only on a napkin, but in addition, just go out into the world and follow the same curiosity that got evoked while you're in that coffee shop. Well, I thought, why not? I'm here. Let's do it. So what I did is I went out and I did what the Aborigines, when I was studying in Australia, I had the privilege of studying with Aboriginal elders in the outback Northern Territories of Australia. A privilege, truly, just to have a glimpse into that culture. And so I was walking about, and I found myself at a kind of beachscape. There was a bay, actually. And I started just, I continued. And that sketch then found itself in the sand there. And then I started digging and made a kind of a little cave-like thing with designs around it. I mean, I was just moving in that way. Afterwards, I found myself back at the coffee shop, and the sketch continued. And what happened is it opened something. And in fact, it was kind of like a portal, truthfully. And that portal opened to something else. Then the question becomes, now what? Now what? Right, I have a portal. So I can interpret that, a portal to something, right? And, mythology and explanation and interpretation lends itself to all kinds of ideas about what a portal could mean. A passageway into the next phase of life, for goodness sakes, a portal into the mysteries, right? A portal out of a relationship into another relationship, life, a portal, evolving in my development, all kinds of things. Well, instead of going there, and again, I was working with this person that was really supportive at that moment in time. Why don't we just abandon all that? Let that go. And instead, just follow curiosity. Allow the portal to be present and continue with what you're doing. Continue the work in the sand and the sketching on the napkin, and let's see where the portal leads. And that's what I did. And through that portal, I renamed all the work I'd been doing because I live in Santa Barbara. So everything in my life is ocean, right? Oceanic. That was, I'm working in depth psychology, the ocean of the psyche, the unconscious. Everything was ocean, ocean, ocean. But this was different. It was more geologic, so to speak. I was going into something like a person might go into a cave and discover what's there and through and on the other side. Humans, we all have been doing this for thousands of years to move into a different range, a different realm, a different possibility of consciousness and experience. And that's what I did. I went and I then named the praxis that I was involved with called the dig. Following curiosity. Everything that I talk about in working in deep imagination begins with curiosity. So I didn't want to keep it esoteric. So I wanted to actually try it out, So at home, here back in Santa Barbara, I just say, all right, I'm going to lead with my curious mind, not my rational mind, my curious mind. And I have a routine, there's an office I have downtown. There's the campuses that I go to, a big office there and so on. And usually I have my route and I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing this day and how I'm going to do it. And I get in the car and it's routine at this point. And I follow that, those directions and I get there. It's effective. It's efficient. It's comfortable. It's familiar. I mean, it's good. It's helpful, honestly. Nothing wrong with that. But this day, back then, I decided to experiment with something else. So instead of taking that right turn that I would always take at that one street, and I've grown up here, but instead of taking that right turn, I took the left turn and then another left and then another right. All of a sudden, I was in these neighborhoods, even though I've lived here all this time, that I had never visited before. And then I slowed down because part of being in curiosity brings a slowing down in life, right? The pace begins to slow, stillness, a quality of presence comes into our life, following curiosity. And I tell you that journey from where I was, and I think this day it was to my office at the university. It took not 10, 15 minutes to get there. It was about a 25-minute journey. I just was part of a landscape that I wasn't familiar with, that I hadn't seen. And what I was noticing kind of came forward, which happens, It happens to all of us. We're taking a walk, either it's in the downtown area or in a cityscape or a countryscape or in a wilderness area, and we let go, and we get curious. And then what happens? We hear the birds with their songs, they changes, light kind of changes, things come forward, but we otherwise would not be aware of. Our awareness opens and broadens. And the same thing happened to me that day. I was just in a different place. I was following curiosity, got to my office, and oh my, what happened as a result of that is the rest of that day really shifted for me. Yeah. Because I shifted contexts, not contents. I mean, I'm good at that, right? I've been trained and I can do long range planning, administrative meetings, personnel, develop curriculum for classes, all kinds of things. But that day, it wasn't about the contents, not the information that I was moving about. The whole context had changed. I'd followed curiosity, slowed way down. My body relaxed. It was very somatic. It always is following curiosity. There's a somatic resonance that happens. And I'll just say one last thing. It's when I work with people with illness and disease syndromes of one sense or the next, bringing curiosity really, really helps because of that somatic resonance. You just really slow down presence. It allows the immune system actually to kick in even more fully. So that's what happened that day, not with illness, but at the institution. I was really in a very different place, much more creative, seeing things more easily, the bigger picture. And it was really something. So curiosity is the hallmark. The book starts with that, chapter 1, and it extends all the way through. I have a famous idea, not famous, but I share it again and again and again. You really cannot be curious, authentically curious, and anxious or depressed at the same time. They're reciprocal inhibitors. So when I'm working with people with crippling anxiety, right, or isolating depression, as I share, evoking curiosity, in addition to all the other skill sets that I have available, evoking curiosity is so, so helpful. It really is a slow down and reset.
That's so impressive that you can't be in two places there at the same time with that. I never knew that curiosity can move people from that place of maybe depression or anxious or what have you.
Yeah, how many times, I mean, because of the work that I do, how often am I involved with people and their lives and enormous anxiety and depression? And if we stay there and we're gripped by that intensity, those feelings, that experience, first, it becomes set in our lives, right? It becomes patterned. And it's hard. It's difficult. no question about that. It's fueled by all kinds of things, often in our early life experience, triggered, re-triggered by something that's going on in the here and now. But if I start there and then I try to work the contents of that, try to, create, and I have at this stage in life and my training, I have all kinds of skills and capacities. If I start there, though, I am still shifting around the contents of what's going on and working really hard to do that. And still, there is that sense of anxiety or despair, depression lurking. On the other hand, if I start with listening deeply, right, really empathetically listening, really being part of and supporting, offering the protection that's required, and then invite curiosity in the room, just in the place where we're working, or offer the person the idea, hey, today, right? When you take a walk down the street on the way back to your car, rather than just making a beeline to the car, slow it down, get curious. What do you notice? Allow the world to come forward. And what captivates your interest or your curiosity? Oh my goodness. That's a different place to begin the work. It's a different place to begin life. Can you imagine what it would be and I do this every morning. That's part of my personal practice. Every morning to begin the day in the place of curiosity. So just this morning, like I do most mornings. And I talk about that also in the book, this thing that I call the dig, right? Because I wasn't in the ocean anymore when I went in those caves and doodling on that napkin. I called it the dig. I was going down into the place of earth. And that was the opening. That became the portal that allowed me to move into the different quadrants of imagination. But in the morning, I'll do that. I'll write down dreams first, and then I bring myself to the place of the portal. For me, it's the call goes out, the gathering happens. That means the many selves we were talking about, the figures of imagination come forward. And instead of leading the troop, which is what I'm good at, which I've always, founder, executive director of this organization, chair of the board of trustees of another organization, all that kind of stuff. So I'm effective at leading. But rather than leading, which is that natural tendency, slowing way down and being part of the group that is gathered of figures, of imaginal figures, because we're going to journey in imagination, I follow the lead. And things open where I wouldn't expect them to open. And imagination, illuminates, really. I call it a kind of illuminated consciousness. We really shift in our way of being. We are leading with curiosity. And then the day comes. And I'm situated in the day way differently. I'm resourced. I don't want to make it sound too romantic or idealistic or fairy tale-ish. It's extraordinarily applied and practical. I'm in the day differently. In family life, in my marriage, in my partnerships, with my friends and colleagues, with the challenges that I'm going to face each day, I'm in the day differently. I am placed in a bigger context, and I am following curiosity, which is a way different way of being present.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Dr. Stephen Aizenstat in regards to his new book, The Imagination Matrix. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an actor, public speaker, or an executive telling your story over Zoom? Jean-Louis Rodrigue and Scott Weintraub's new book, Back to the Body, takes the process they use to coach top Hollywood talent like Margot Robbie, Jack Black, and Ke Huy Quan and makes it available to everyone. Using your body and its energy as a point of departure, your work will gain an enhanced level of performance and depth. Back to the Body, available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
If you want to stop divorce fast, you do not need to waste years in therapy, you do not need to work on yourself, and you do not even have to have your spouse on board. If your spouse wants out, if they're filing for divorce, separation, or having an affair, what you need is a proven process to turn your marriage around. Book a free breakthrough session with us at highthrivecoaching.com/apply.
What if everything we think we know about addiction, depression, anxiety, and trauma is missing the one key element that will actually let you walk away from them for good? My name's Bob Gardner, founder of The Freedom Specialist and creator of a body-based approach that eliminates suffering and creates happiness, health, and well-being on autopilot. You can read all about it in my book, Built for Freedom, or start your own adventure toward lasting freedom at thefreedomspecialist.com.
Dr. Richard London, who has 25 years of experience being known as the Man of Steel with the Heart of Velvet, presents the Life Wellness System, The Road to Yes, a mentoring system that brings you to becoming a wellness heir. Imagine having wealth, wellness, love, peace, and spirituality in abundance and balance now. Visit doctorateoflife.com or call 720-213-8021 for a free 15-minute wellness evaluation.
Hi, this is Jana Wilson, author of Wise Little One, Learning to Love and Listen to My Inner Child, a best-selling prescriptive memoir in inner child healing. I'm also the founder of the Emotional Healing System. The inner child, simply put, is your feelings, both positive and negative. If you'd like to learn to love and listen to your wise little one, pick up my book at Amazon or visit my website at janawilson.com. It's never too late to have a happy childhood.
The first thing you need to know about me is that I love my kids, but they are not my everything. They used to be, but that's when my entire life fell apart. In order to pick back up the pieces, I had to put the love I have for myself before everything else, including my kids. I'm Jessica Dennehy, and I own multiple businesses. I'm a best-selling author, and I have all the strategies that I've used to make my life what it is today. And I'm going to teach you how to do them in my new book, Selfish is a Superpower. So go get your copy today on Barnes & Noble or jessicadennehy.com.
Announcing a revolutionary tool for wellness. Scalar Light has the ability to enhance and harmonize your own bioenergies. With Scalar Light, you can get started in just minutes and begin feeling better the very next day. Scalar Light is a remote energy that gently and subtly works with your own body's bioenergies, increases pro-cellular wellness, and enhances your body's immunity.
Experience the benefits of Scalar Light. Try a complimentary 15-day experience at scalarlight.com.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns. These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. We're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Stephen Aizenstat, who's here to share with us his new book, The Imagination Matrix: How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. Now, as you are getting into the dig, and we're not going to get into that right here, we want people to pick up their own copy of The Imagination Matrix. But as you get into that, is it helpful to have guides or spirit companions or soul companions that can help throughout this process?
Yeah, not only is it vital, I think it's necessary, right? And again, not to be too magical about it. It's necessary in any journey that we take in life. A journey of consequence usually involves a companion, a guide. I mean, there are necessary things we need to do in preparation. And I know people are experimenting a lot with plant medicines and vine and all different mediums. And people have been taking these kinds of journeys for, hundreds, if not thousands of years in human experience. Just modernity came, everything sped up, we're all part of it. And instead of really taking the time in our lives to really allow ourselves to journey in imagination, we instead really go to problem solving, all the curriculum in the schools, teaching to the test, trying to figure out the correct answers. And there's good reason for that, because that kind of evolution of the rational mind and deductive reasoning, it's brought so much to culture. It has. However, we got it, imagination and intuition and creativity, innovation gets marginalized when we're really into rote learning and just following the design that's preconceived. So in order to go on the journey, right? Any journey, helpful to have what you named spirit guides. I call them soul companions, figures that support and help. In fact, they are the ones that not only offer the protection and the support, they also are the guides. They're the ones that lead the way. So when I'm in that experience personally, just share it personally, I will be in the company of others. It starts for me, hey, the call goes out, which is for me, just for me, a reflection of, okay, the call goes out. That means which guides, which figures are going to be gathering this morning, right? Usually there are a number of them that are familiar. A guide figure is familiar. A beloved figure is familiar. A supportive presence is familiar and present witness. And then I'm not sure who comes next, which gets us back to dream time. Because when the dreams come, there'll be many figures that are present. So perhaps it's a figure from the dream that's there that morning as well. And so I'm present with them. And then the guide gestures. Call goes out. The gathering is now happening. And then there's a gesture. And one of the figures will gesture when we're in imagination. Just like in awake life, when we're taking a journey and somebody has the impulse or somebody suggests, hey, let's go in this way, And so I follow them. I'm one of the many of that group of figures. I'm not the lead. That's the biggest difference. That's the difference that makes all the difference, right? I'm not the leader necessarily, but I am an active participant. I'm present and I follow and I listen. And to the places that we travel, the important thing that I can do, can I bring my courage? And the courage is to bring myself to the praxis each day. And the courage is to be present, let go, follow curiosity. And then most important, bringing a witnessing presence. It's not like I disappear or fade away. It's just that who I bring is a very deeply felt witnessing presence. I'm present and I'm aware and I take in the information. And then when I come back up, the same way usually that you go down, when you come back up, just write down what I experienced. It's really extraordinary. Writing down what I experienced, what I observed, what I noticed. Take a deep breath, right? Always starts with breathing, just the deep breath, centering in whatever way each of us has. And then I notice what hints are coming forward, It shapes the day. Then I go into the agenda of the day. What am I going to be doing? How am I going to interact? What are the kinds of projects I'm working on? But informed by the experiences that I had that morning.
Sounds like a way to set up your day in a way that's positive and supportive of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, very much so. And supportive is the word, right? It is a very deeply felt ground of being, right? There is a sense of support. I mean, let's make it practical. So, for example, I'm asked to speak at a number of places. I do keynote talks in places, but also, I'm going to I speak at graduation ceremonies at the institution. I've been asked and have been to the United Nations and speak on behalf of the environment. All kinds of things that are demanding, and I can do it. And I can use, my life experience and my expertise and the work that I put into crafting the talk or the speech that I'm going to give. I do it that way. I can. It's just different. If I go in that way, which I've done hundreds of times, one thing happens. Each of us, when we're in a conversation with a friend or a partner, and we go in with our mind, with our rationality, with our sense of intention and purpose, one thing has happened. It's not bad at all. I mean, it's productive and necessary sometimes. On the other hand, before I go to the podium, let's say I'm at the United Nations. I mean, that's a big one, but let's imagine, because that's happened a number of times, and I'm there and I'm going to talk. So now, the stakes are higher and I'm on a different stage. If I go by myself with my prepared speech, and my experience, I'm going to come across in one way. And it's helpful. It is. I'm contributing. On the other hand, if at first I really listen to myself and the others that are with me, the dear companions of psyche, those what you named as spirit guides, or those companions, those inner figures, the many figures that I've really taken the time to cultivate relationship with, really have. So they become familiars to me, familiars of the psyche, of the soul, really. They're soul companions. If I take the time first to reacquaint with those figures and then go up and offer a talk or a speech, and let's not make it so dramatic like the United Nations. I am in a marriage relationship. If I go into a conversation that is demanding or, difficult, challenging, like happens on occasion, then if I go in just, all organized around my point of view, the right answer, my advocacy, which, would be a tendency, one thing's going to happen. If on the other hand, I pause first, get curious, breathe, reacquaint with home place, the company of the others, the inner community of figures, and then go outside to the outer community, whether it be a partner or whether it be a speech that's given somewhere or whether it be in community service. If I first come to that inner community, I feel not alone. I really don't. It's not just me. I'm there with these support figures. I feel like I'm part of an inner community I share all the time. We need to navigate in life an outer community. We do. It's really important, I think, for all of us to have a felt sense of a community of people that are, compassionate, somewhat like-minded, diverse in experience and life and opinion on times, but yet present for us. And an inner community also. External community, outer community, and the inner community. And the inner community opens the possibility for a kind of homecoming, a sense of belonging, deep belonging. And when I'm in a place of belonging and at home and supported by an inner community, and then I go into a marriage conversation, then I go into a partnership conversation, then I go into a situation that is demanding or crisis oriented, or working with a child or whatever it might be, it's different. I experience myself different, and not to psychologize it too much, I feel myself resourced deeply in a way that is really helpful and really useful when I'm in that kind of dynamic or in those kinds of relationships that need the best of who we are.
I can see where having that inner support gives that extra level of just resources in many ways that typically would not be there had we not started to get curious about that and see about developing this inner, I don't want to say realm, but just this inner place of being.
Yes. And, we all know it. We all know of this, what I'm talking about. And certainly every psychology from A to Z, regardless of the kind of psychology or even philosophy, speaks to it, right? Look, when we come in and we have a sense of Inner support. It's called the primary anchoring system, if you want to go in that direction. That place where I have a depth of love and care for myself. And it usually happens early on, right? Many times families are difficult, challenging, somewhat dysfunctional. It's hard there. But more often than not, there's somebody in the family system, either parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, or people that are very good friends of the system, the family. And they care about us. We feel their love. And that's the beginning place of evolving a kind of love for ourselves, a self-love, right? Positive inner parenting, let's say, or support. Whether it's a parent or somebody else, a mentor, could be a school counselor, could be a really beloved friend. But we develop that sense of care for ourselves. We need that. It's primary, right? And more often than not, it's attributed to people in our lives. And that's incredibly important and useful and needs to be cultivated for sure. In addition, what hasn't really been fully acknowledged is that when we come home to what we started with, that source code, when we come home to the imagination that is our inheritance from the beginning, truly. I mean, watch children. Children are playing for the first number of years in imaginal play. I mean, the figures are everywhere, right? And they're just, they talk with them, they have conversations with them, they have their whole little family of figures. But when we come home to that place, we have that sense of deep belonging, that quality of love, truly. I mean, we can name it a whole bunch of stuff, but when we feel that, we feel a sense of, inner support that's very deeply felt. And I think at bottom, there is that quality of love. I remember our daughter growing up. Oh, she was a trip. She was amazing, and my wife and I would listen and we would hear sounds and voices, conversations coming from the bedroom. We were sure that she had a friend over and they were playing, of course. I mean, we could even hear some of the conversation. And then only discover when we opened the door, not a person there. She was having, she was in imaginal play, which children are very much involved with. She was taking on all the different parts, talking with the figures as if they were actual and present. She was in her imagination. She was surrounded by a lot of figures. I mean, those were her people. That was her inner community back then. And what happens in the West, certainly in Western cultures, and now Western culture is part of so many cultures, modernity in so many countries. I travel all over and it's the same every place. Modernity comes in and we are then, invited out of that or pushed out of that. And we are quickly into first grade, still in the early years available, but it goes quickly. And then we're asked to, the teaching is to the test, and, we're asked to figure out the results of things and to increase our IQ in all different ways. Of course we are. I mean, it's part of what's necessary and needed. It's at the expense often of the imaginal realms, the cultivating imagination. That for me is a real shame. It's a real shame because it's really extraordinary to watch children that have the possibility of growing up in school, in a school setting, learning the lessons that are necessary. Yes. And in addition, keeping imagination alive. That is something else, because then we grow up with access to that resource. And again, that's what is, what shapes our creativity. It really facilitates innovation. I'll just say one last thing on this. It's no wonder that at this point in time in culture, where innovation, creativity, ingenuity is needed now more than ever before, truly. I mean, if we're going to get ourselves out of, as a people, out of the mess that is being created, everything from what's going on in conflict around the world to the crisis of climate, illness, on and on, right? Something new is being asked of us. Evolution is requiring that of us as a species, if we're going to survive, as we're going to survive and thrive. Something else is being asked. It's no wonder the Harvard Business School, from Harvard Business School, right, to any one of the tech companies starting innovation centers, and also Harvard. What are they teaching? Yeah, they teach the ABCs of business. They know that inside and out better than almost anybody. And in addition, into their curriculum is coming imagination. They're teaching courses. They have a whole center. Every student that's going through and learning the craft of business is also learning the craft of accessing imagination. Okay? Now, I don't want to romanticize because, of course, part of that is, hey, with imagination comes innovation. With innovation, there's ingenuity. And, it's important because if you're working with product lines, you're going to want to access the next innovation, right? It helps to generate the competitive edge as much as anything else, just to put it like that. And two, though, when I mentioned the UN and our work with the UN, working with the climate crisis, we had to do the same. And I offered that idea. We were going along the lines of, hey, people from around the world, amazingly gifted people, world leaders, people that were really involved with environmental work for decades. And the question we were asking, we were gathered at The Hague, actually. And the question that was being asked is, what can we do, right? What can we do to help the planet? Actually, to save the planet. What can we do to help the planet? I'll never forget, I just by the luck of the draw, am the world leader at that point that was, chairing the whole thing. Said, we've been here for 4 nights, 5 days. We work around the clock, people from all over all this expertise, and we've failed. We just don't have it yet. We're working on what's called the Earth Charter International, trying to evolve principles that could be translated into, for all countries, to have a more sustainable world. And I said, I think we're asking the wrong question. What can we do to help the planet? Why don't we ask the other side? The other question is, what is the planet asking of us? Notice the difference. What is the planet asking of us? If we go there, we're going to need to open imagination, because we're going to need to listen to the creatures and the landscapes and the peoples of the planet, not through rationality only, but through what's living in the depths of experience and imagination. I know that sounds weird, right? I mean, really? How are you going to listen to a landscape, for goodness sakes? Steve, are you making up fantasy? Dream? Not really. How many of us know that if you're walking, how long have people said, if you listen to this lake, you can hear the song of the lake, right? If you listen to, or that phrase that is often used, if walls could talk. Well, what if walls could talk? Or what if there is a song in the lake, and we had the ears to hear and the eyes to see. If we shifted lenses and we were able to listen to the imagination that's alive in all creatures, things, landscapes, listen to the imagination that comes forward, right? And here, we did do just that practically, operationally. We did that. We sent out people around every place through the World Council of Churches. Actually, we had people going door to door, asking people, do you have an intuition? Do you have is there a dream image that's come forward? Do you have a sense of what's going on in this area, this landscape? I went to city planners in Utah talking about the horrible plight of Salt Lake City, of the smog and the pollution in the air. And we just asked, hey, is there anything that's moving through in addition to all the rational thought that we given all these people that are so gifted at what they're doing? So we just paused. And instead of starting in that way, which is why they asked me in, we started in inviting everybody to share a story and intuition, accessing curiosity and imagination and breath from the very beginning. And then went around the room a second and third time. Amazing what came forward. Right? The same thing that's going on in all kinds of places now, allowing imagination to participate. And people will share stories. Places have stories to tell. A new building, architecturally, has a story to tell. And to hear the stories that live inside and along with creatures, landscapes, and things, and people. That makes all the difference. Imagination is open and we access resources. Just to end that story in the United Nations, now, yes, 15 years later, 10 years later, 5 years later, over 1 million organizations, cities, and or councils, community councils, have utilized these principles that came from the evolution of an Earth Charter.
Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work and be part of your community?
Oh, well, the easy way is dreamtending.com. That's the kind of dream work that I do, dreamtending.com.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, it was a delight. Thank you very much for hosting.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stephen Aizenstat. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Imagination Matrix: How to Access the Greatest Power You Have for Creativity, Connection, and Purpose. The Imagination Matrix is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. You can also purchase this book directly from the publisher, Sounds True, at soundstrue.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.